Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming a former child actress from the 80s. You all know her as Baby McNulty in the Trancers movies, and I am talking about Alyson Croft. She was also in lots of other things, lots of TV, I have to say. Lots of shows like Punky Brewster, Family Ties, Dallas, and she did some other movies besides the Trancers movies, like Made to Order and The Great White Hype, and a couple others. And so I'm having her on the show today to talk about all that. One of my more peculiar Christmas shows. I mean, Trancers does have Christmas in it, but it's not a Christmas film, but I still consider it a Christmas film, just as much as Night of the Comet is a Christmas film. And I consider Trading Places a Christmas film. I'm having a guest from that movie on tomorrow, and I can't wait. But today, I have Alyson Croft, and I can't wait. It's going to be fucking awesome. So yeah, here is my interview with Alyson Croft. Hey, Alyson.
Hi, how are you, Tommy?
I am spectacular. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
Awesome.
Thanks for asking me to do this, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's such an honor. Thank you for taking the time today. We get to finally do this.
I know. I'm excited.
Awesome. So, going back in time, I know you were...
Literally.
What?
Literally,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You were a child actress. At what age did your interest in acting start?
Well, believe it or not, I was very young. I was probably about 5, and, it wasn't so much about my parents letting me do it. It was like they had to try and stop me from doing it. So when I was about 6 or 7, they said, okay, all right, well, we'll let you give it a shot, but you got to take classes. So I started taking classes, and I was fortunate enough to actually take my first acting class with Anthony Bardeo, who actually cast Trancers.
Wow.
And from being in his class, he had called me in because he was cast in this film for Empire Pictures at the time, and it was this sort of sci-fi film, right? So
Right.
The character was that I was a little girl who'd been taken over by a man from the future, a tough cop from the future.
Right.
So he thought I'd be great for it. So he brought me in. We did all the, first callbacks, all that stuff. And then I actually booked that film. So
Wow.
that is how that came about. Yes.
So were your parents in the industry?
No, they weren't. Mm-mm. It was just they couldn't stop me. I mean, I'd have, people would come from the neighborhood to come over to our house, and I would have a show, and my parents would be like, "Why are all the neighbors at our house?" I'm like, "Oh, because we're having a show," and they were mortified, of course. So they didn't know what to do with me. So they said, "Let's just, funnel that energy into something productive." And she wants to be an actress, so let's give it a shot. And I was thrilled and stopped bugging them. So it all kind of worked out when they kind of made that happen. So
And you were in...
you put me in the right spot.
Yeah. You were living in L.A.?
We were in LA. I think we were out in the West Valley when I was younger.
Wow. And yeah, most child actors I've talked to, they start out in commercials first.
I did do a lot of those too.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of those. I first wanted to be on Three's Company because, John Ritter was my absolute idol.
Yeah.
And I missed all the innuendo of that show, except for him. And he just, I wanted to be on that show so bad. And I did have an opportunity to be on that show. I got a call back. It was the only time they ever had a little kid on that show. And it was 4 of us. And at the callback, in walks John Ritter into the waiting room. And he came in and he sat down next to my mom and I at the couch. And I thought I was going to die. I was like, I was probably 8, maybe. And he talked to us for like 5-10 minutes, and that was all I needed. And I didn't end up booking the job, but it was just so thrilling. So at least I had a shot at it, but I didn't actually get on the show. But that's okay.
Oh.
Kept me going.
Yeah, the only little girl I remember on Three's Company was Lori Hendler from Give Me a Break.
She was, but she was older than I was.
Yeah.
There was a little girl that was on there. I do remember this episode like it was yesterday, and it was the one about the kittens.
Oh, yes.
That was the one. Mm-hmm. Yep, that was the one, and it was the only time that they had a little one on there other than the Give Me a Break girl. So
that's the one. That's the one where I think Jack and Janet, they're in the kitchen playing with this cat, and I think Suzanne Summers or somebody is in the other room, and it's a misunderstanding. They think it's all sexual.
Of course. Well, that's the whole show. You know, as I grew up watching it, I was like, oh, this is totally different than what I thought it was at 6 or 7 or whatever.
I know.
So, you know.
Same here.
I had no idea any of the sexual innuendo stuff. I just thought he was hilarious with the pratfalls and the, you know, I got the misunderstandings, but it was just all about, you know, Mr. Jack Tripper. So.
Yeah. I'm working with Priscilla Barnes about getting her on the podcast. It's been like a year's planning. She's been extremely busy, but she's been very apologetic, and she's been letting me know, you know, how it's getting closer for her to have free time and stuff. So I'm looking forward to that when it happens.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Now, according to IMDb, and we know how inaccurate IMDb can be, you were first in a movie called Deadly Sunday.
Yeah. Yes, I remember vaguely. I was so young. I remember vaguely dangling from a hill and on ropes. They had me tied up in ropes, and I was dangling off a cliff. That's all I remember about that movie. I've never seen it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea what that's about. I think there was something about a woman with a very large thumb.
I never saw this movie or heard of it. You know, I never even heard of anyone in it other than you. But apparently, it's a family vacation gone wrong movie, but not like the Griswolds.
No. I think it was a little more sinister than that. Yes.
Yeah, probably.
I never ended up seeing it, so.
Probably like Death Valley, which came out the same year.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
I was very little, and I never saw it. And there's a lot of stuff I've done that I just haven't watched, so I don't know.
So again with Trancers, which by the way, it's one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time.
Aww, sweet.
Yes, and
yeah, Trancers was great. I mean, it was a great film. It had a nice budget. It had the vibe of that 80s, kind of brought in that punk rock vibe and that kind of neon-y, you know, retro kind of feel. Like when you watch it today, like there's parts of it that are like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. And the concept is great, and it's been used in so many other films, just that idea of time travel. Which is pretty, you know, I'm like, oh, that's, you know, even movies today, I'm like, oh, didn't they do that like 30 years ago? Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I think that Charlie Band is a genius, and I've met him a couple times. I saw him at Son of Monster Palooza back in September, and he was desperately trying to sell me a Amazon Prime subscription for his Full Moon Features channel.
No way.
Yeah.
That's so funny. He was definitely a go-getter, that's for sure, and had tons of ideas and was always enthusiastic on the set. And, you know, I was a kid through that one, so I don't remember any of this. You know, he was always very wholesome to me. He was married, had kids, and you know, everyone was just it was very wholesome. but he was very driven, and he wanted to do a certain number of movies by the year 2000, and they had goals, and very much a go-getter. So.
I think he succeeded on that. Yeah. Have you heard the Blu-ray commentary track?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, him and Tim Thomerson are talking. Tim remembers everything. Charlie does not remember shit on this commentary track. And at a certain point, about maybe 15, 20 minutes in, Tim says to him, "Charlie, do you even remember this movie?" Yeah.
Tim is awesome. I still talk to him, and he's always just had the coolest sense of humor, and just really laid back for a leading man, and and a terrific actor.
Yeah,
he hammed up in order to kind of create what the world that Charlie wanted, and that Jack Death smoldering kind of thing, and he was he pulled it off. He was so phenomenal, and so was Helen too. So
yeah,
it was a good original cast for sure.
And he was also a great stand-up comedian, but very few people know that.
That's right, he was. Yes, and he's still very, very funny. He always made everybody laugh. He'll leave messages, and they'll be like, do things in accents. I'll be like, who is this? He's like, I'm Hispanic today, or I'm doing my, whatever character today. And I'm like, okay, all right, Tim, I love you.
He called David Bowie David Blowy.
David Bowie. Aww. Silly. So silly.
But Helen Hunt, she was great on that too.
Yeah, no, she was great. She was always so welcoming and warm, and liked what I was doing, because she knew it was. I had so much fun with doing that character, even at 6, and even at throughout the years and the times that they called me back to do, at different times in my life, because those were my growing up years. So,
mm-hmm.
The older I got, the more into the actual character it was. So I had to remember I was playing a man. So, I had to, and I would talk to Art LaFleur about certain things, and he would, do his mannerisms, and I would kind of watch him and observe him as to how he is, if he scratched in a place, or if he, he would probably reference, my chest at a certain point, or something like that, but then I don't think Charlie was that interested in me exploring that part of the character. So,
I just had Art on around Halloween time. Such a great guy.
Cool. That's so cool. I haven't talked to him in forever, and he was great, though. He was great, because he really wanted us to kind of bond, and really taught me a lot about observation as an actor, and really watching if you're portraying a subject,
mm-hmm.
you really have to sit back and really watch, and so there's a lot of things with his hands that he used in the film, where he would put his hand up and be like, no more lip, or he would say things like, whatever it was, and he would put his hand up like, stop talking, and so then I had kind of adopted that gesture and that behavior, and so all of that was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was my favorite part to date, for sure.
Yeah, I love that last shot of the movie where you have that cynical smirk on your face as you're watching them kiss.
Yeah, and that was put in late. That was not original in part of the script. They put that in after I had scenes that I was trying to bring them back home.
Mm-hmm.
And they called back and they said, okay, well, we have an idea for the end. Can she come back? And they did that as it may have been the last day of shooting. And they just added that in. So I was more shocked than anyone when we watched it. And I was like, oh, wow, look at that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Danny Bilson is a brilliant writer.
Yep, it was pretty cool to have that in, because it led into all the other Trancers after.
Yeah, how was working on Pulse Pounders and Trancers 2?
Well, Pulse Pounders was amazing, because that was shot in Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just an experience of a lifetime. And they didn't tell me that I had the role, because I had gone from, age 6 or 7 to age 13 or 14 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't know if I was going to be able to pull that off, at that age, to still be like, a man in a girl's body, because a lot of girls at that age are very insecure about their bodies and all of that kind of stuff. So I went in for a call thinking I had to re-audition for the role. So I went in and I did the sides, and then I got in the elevator with Charlie. He came into the elevator and looks at me and he goes, "So, have you packed yet for Italy?" And I had no idea that it shot in Italy and that I had got the job. And I looked at him and I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, we're going to Italy, all of us." So what are you talking about? And I about fell down in the elevator. It was the most exciting. It was a great moment because no one had told me. And so, so we went to Italy for a few weeks, and it was an amazing time. And they were doing a couple of other films at the time, so it was a whole bunch of us at this one hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of, and Charlie was very family-oriented at the time. He wanted everyone from all the casts of Pulse Pounders, because there were 3 different sort of vignette sort of films they were kind of doing at the time.
Yeah.
So I think there was like Ty Cobb was in one. There was a few other names that I can't remember.
Barbara Crampton.
We would all go out to dinner in Italy, and it would be like just a family kind of vibe. So no one was left really on their own. We were all in the same hotel, and we'd all go out to eat, and we'd all have, he'd make sure that we all had our proper Italian lunch on set. And so there was a little restaurant at the De Laurentiis studio in Rome. And, we'd have the traditional 7,000 course meal, Like, this is a lot of food. I can't eat it all. They're like, it's Italian. Eat it. Okay.
Did you meet the Reanimator people?
I actually ended up meeting the director of the Reanimator.
Stuart Gordon?
Stuart Gordon. Many, many years later.
Mm-hmm.
I had a theater company with Anthony Barneo in my 20s.
Uh-huh.
And he was still friends with Stuart. And so we would have like a reading of some script or a play or something, and we'd do it at Stuart's house. And I remember meeting him a couple of times through that. So.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. Did they ask you to be?
Mm-hmm.
Did they ask you to be in any of the other Trancer movies?
Actually, it's interesting. When we did the technically what's called the second Trancers, which was, in my opinion, the third Trancers, because when I was 16 or something at that one, I had kind of left my agency. So you really have to talk to Charlie about that, because I have no idea why I did not come back, because I'd look awesome on a horse as Little McNulty and whatever Trancers that was, where they were doing the Western one.
Yeah.
But no, I didn't ever hear back from them. I have no idea why. So that would be, I don't have the answer to that one. I would have loved it though. But
yeah, I
don't know.
Helen Hunt came back for, I believe, the last one, and I thought that was really cool of her because she'd been an A-list star by that point, and Mad About You, I think, had just canceled and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool that she came back to her roots like that.
Oh yeah. She when we were in Rome, she had not had that Mad About You success, and she was just always so supportive. So she would go see dailies, and then she'd be coming out of dailies, and I'd be coming out of school or whatever it was, and I'd be walking with my mom, and she'd be yelling across the studio like, "I just saw the dailies. You're amazing!" She was just always so supportive and so sweet about, my work as a youngster. So that was always a nice boost of confidence, because she was always everyone was always kind. There was no egos. There was none of that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, she started so young herself too, so she knew what that was like.
Sure, and she was super sweet. So. Yeah, and we were all very happy for her when she, catapulted.
Yeah.
So. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I so remember this episode you did of Punky Brewster.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
Say no to drugs.
Is actually one of my good friends. I've known her since we did that show. And I actually have been coaching her daughter, acting, one of her daughters, and she was right down the road from me now, and we've been friends ever since. So,
oh my God, she's
so
like
crazy. It's a long-time friendship.
She's like on my wish list of people to get, along with Tiffany Brissett from Small Wonder.
Oh my gosh, that's a name from the past. What was the name of that show? Because I was on that show. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of that.
The episode you did?
No, the actual show. What was it called again?
Small Wonder.
Small Wonder, that's it. Small Wonder. Oh my gosh. Yes, and the redhead from that show, Emily Schulman.
Yeah.
At the time, she ended up being a huge agent at 18.
Wow.
18 years old. She signed on and she became a huge, successful agent for like 10 years, 12 years. She actually signed me at one point for commercial department in my 20s, and and then she ended up moving back to New York and starting a family and all of this kind of stuff. But her and I remained very close because we all had the same agent at the time. So it was like her and me and River Phoenix and Rainbow and, oh gosh, who else was there? Fred Savage and
Danielle Harris.
Danny Lewis, and we all had the same agent. So we'd spend Christmas parties with all of us together and stuff like that. So
yeah, she was funny on the show.
Oh, she was definitely a character, that's for sure.
Yeah, I actually used to look forward to watching it just because of her, because I thought she was so funny and so cute too.
She was so cute, so out there with that crazy red hair, and yeah, she was really cool. But she made a decision early on, hey, I don't want to act anymore.
Yeah, she's part of that. She's part of that, that TV tradition of like Eddie Haskell and Kimmy Gibbler, just the annoying neighbor who's who's kind of obnoxious,
Yeah, and she was actually the opposite of that, which was what was so crazy, so different about her. She was always so fun and caring, and not obnoxious at all. She was so sweet.
Yeah.
And continued to be that way, and then chose, family over the business, which is commendable in my opinion. So.
Very commendable.
Mm-hmm.
You did the ABC Disney movie Double Switch.
Oh, yes, that was fun. That was super fun. Yeah, let's see, that one was a tough one to get. I remember going back in a bunch of times on that one, and it was me and they had George Newbern, who they hadn't quite hired yet. And I think it was one of his biggest it was his start, because the next thing I think he did was like Adventures in Babysitting or something.
Right.
But I remember going on auditions, and it would be me and him, and then there was one other girl that they were trying to decide. It was me and Allison Hannigan.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept just going back in and back in and back in and back in and back in. And luckily I was, fortunate enough to book that one. So that was so much fun. Just being the annoying, obnoxious sister.
Yeah. You got to play one next.
I love playing those, the character you love to hate. Like, those are the best roles. Because they're just so much fun to play.
Yeah, and this was just before Elizabeth Shue and George Newbern did Adventures in Babysitting.
Yes. This was right before that. And I think that was what the project that got him in the room for that. And they actually called me in because I looked so much older. That was an issue for me as an actress, was that I'm very tall. And at 9, I looked 12. At 12, I looked 15 or 16. And even at 16, I didn't look 16. I looked maybe a little bit older. So they actually called me in, and I went back and met with everyone for Adventures of Babysitting. And Elizabeth Shue had been in Double Switch. Because she plays the girlfriend of George Newbern in the Disney movie. And it was just so bizarre. The casting people were like, don't tell them how old you are. Just go in there. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, so my boyfriend's going to be George Newbern? That's weird. He was just my older brother. So, yeah, they went with Elizabeth on that one, but clearly.
Yeah, I met George at Comic-Con this summer. He's a very sweet guy.
Oh, the nicest. So nice. And I ended up working with him again, actually, when he did a series called Bowl. I got on set, and my character was supposed to kind of give him a lot of grief because my father had died, or whatever the storyline was. Like, he was a stockbroker, and he lost all my dad's money, and then my dad died penniless. So I accosted him on the street. Mm-hmm. I hadn't seen him in years, and I said, "Hey, you remember me?" And he was like, "Yes." And that was fine. So we talked about it, and he was like, "Oh my God, it's like family." And him and his wife were a part of Double Switch because I think they were dating at that time. And so she became, good friends with my mom and things like that at the time. So, and they've been married ever since. So,
yeah,
he's a great guy. He really is.
He really is, yes, and he's still good looking in his 50s.
And I'm so glad for his new, success on Scandal, or,
yeah,
new surge in his career, and it's well deserved,
I know. I was looking at the 8x10s he had at this table. He didn't have a Theodore Rex 8x10. Must really hate that rule.
I think I shot him I shot him a screenshot of some publicity photos from Double Switch, and it was like him with the guitar and him, playing the alter ego of him or whatever, the doppelganger of him, and he was like, "This is so fantastic. I've never seen this before." Yeah. Well, the internet is amazing.
Yeah. Any good stories about the infamous Made to Order?
Made to Order. Wow, that was Dick Shaw, right? Dick Shaw played the dad in that. That was what I remember most about that film, was that he was hilarious. On and off, he never turned it off. He was always on, and made me pee in my pants, I think, many times, just laughing. He was so hilarious. So hilarious. Not much about Ali Sheedy. She was very, there to do a job, and we did the job, and she was very kind. Everyone was very nice, but, she was, it was a big, first starring role, I believe, if I'm not wrong, other than Breakfast Club, but...
Yeah, she was...
That's what I remember from that.
Yeah, she was making a big leap from the Brat Pack to adult roles, and I don't know, her career was so promising, and then she just got lost in the shuffle, which is sad because she was very talented.
For sure.
I think the Breakfast Club is a definite testament of that, playing this, freaky outcast girl, she's a pathological liar.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was like the opposite of that. She was very demure, very sweet, beautiful, kind of like a Winona Ryder in a way.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Yeah, Winona Ryder type. Like, she could have played that role, too.
Yeah, she could have. But I think she was a little young.
Did you have...
But, she was great, too. I just remember Dick Shaw being just a riot the whole time.
That was his last movie before he died.
Was it really? Oh, that's sad.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I believe it was. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Did you have any interaction with Beverly D'Angelo?
I think we had a dinner scene, I believe, that we were in together, but nothing remarkable that I can remember. I mean, that was a long time ago, so things are a little fuzzy, Mm-hmm. It was the 80s.
Tom Skerritt's in it. He's actually one of my uncle's neighbors up in Washington.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very nice guy. I remember...
Yeah, you should get him on.
That guy, oh my God, he's got such a huge resume. I wouldn't even know where to begin, because I'd probably want to ask him about everything, because I've loved him in everything he's ever done.
Everything. He's great in everything.
Yeah, he's a very talented guy. Very talented guy. I remember you did a 2-part episode of Family Ties.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I've seen literally every episode since I was a kid. It's like one of my favorite sitcoms ever.
It was one of mine at the time too. So it was such a great opportunity. I was so excited about that whole process. And when they called us in, we had first calls, and then we all had to read the. I don't know if you remember the episode, but there was one main girl that was the main cool girl.
Yes. And
so we all read that material. And I went way over the top with the Valley Girl stuff. So when I went in for callback, at that time, it being a network show, it was, 10 writers, 10 producers, and the room was packed. I mean, there had to have been 50 people in the room. And the moment I opened my mouth, it was just laughter. And I had never really experienced that kind of overwhelming laughter. And so I felt really great leaving because they'd had them in stitches. I'm like, hey, it's a comedy. And they were laughing. Hey, maybe we have a shot. Well, we didn't hear anything, and I was so devastated. And then a couple days later, we got a call saying, okay, so they want to hire her, but not for the lead girl, but to play one of the like little minions, one of the little followers. And I was thrilled. I was like, oh my God, great. Okay, great. And so then they would send the scripts to the house, and, I have bunches of dialogue, this and that. And then once I got on set, they started giving me more and more and more. And Kasad Kalada directed that episode.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be one episode, and then they turned it into 2 episodes.
Right.
And then they made it kind of like that was her, what was the main girl's name? Tina
Yothers.
Tina Yothers. Yeah, it was like her kind of foray into adolescence,
Yeah.
What girls to stay away from, what girls to be friends with,
Yeah.
We had a blast. And then they turned it into 2 weeks, and it was great. And, I was a lot younger than all the girls. Like I said, I looked a lot older than I was. So the girl playing the lead girl, the lead, bratty girl, was, I don't even know if she was in high school or not. She may have been. But I was like 12,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had to lie. I had to say I was 15 or whatever the age the character was.
So many did
there was
that.
a lot of that for me, having to compete with older.
Yeah, so many people did that. And if I remember correctly, I think you asked Jennifer if Bruce Springsteen was going to be at the party, and she says, no, but the guy that I do have, he is born in the USA.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there was so many great, funny moments, and, it was so thrilling because it was the closest thing to theater. I had done a play,
Mm-hmm.
And when I was, 9 or something like that. It was a pretty big play, and so we had huge audiences, and I hadn't really experienced that before, but that thing you get with an audience was so pure, and it was always so different every night. Mm-hmm. And that one was with Leslie Ann Warren and Tony Richardson, who was an Academy Award director at the time. So it was a great experience. And then when I got on set for Three's Company, oh my gosh, no wishing for Three's Company.
Yeah.
For Family Ties, it was so similar to that. It was that instant response. Like, I opened my mouth and there was a response from, whether it be the writers and the directors, the writer and the director and the producers for each network read at the end of the day. And then finally, once the live audience came, it was such a thrill. It was like, that's what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of feedback you get from a live audience is something that you can't really get when you're doing drama and things like that, or like tape shows and
I remember
comic stuff.
Yeah, and I remember too from that episode, Gino DeMoro was on there.
Which one was that, Gino?
Blonde kid. He used to do like McDonald's commercials.
Gino DeMoro, that sounds so familiar. Was he like, "We're not boys, we're dudes"?
Yes.
There's a few lines from that show that just stick in your mind as like little taglines. For me, anyway.
Yeah.
So, okay, that must have been him. Yeah.
I found him.
Yeah,
I found him on LinkedIn.com, and oh my God, he still looks the same, except he's got a beard now.
Oh. Wow. Yeah, you wonder what happens to these people. Nicole Normand, the one that was the geeky friend on that episode, those 2 episodes.
Yeah.
She's a pediatrician.
Oh, nice.
Wow. So I friends with her, and she's, living a whole different life. But, lives in Beverly Hills and is a Beverly Hills pediatrician and married with a bunch of kids, and, everyone thinks actors are idiots, and, you turn out to find, they take different paths, and there's, mathematicians.
Well, Jeff Cohen, who played Chunk in the Goonies, he's an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what made me think of him was him and Gino DeMoro did the Disney TV movie around the same time you did, called Ask Max. Because I used to watch all of those when I was 3 or 4 years old. I loved those Sunday night ABC Disney movies.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and now they're all on YouTube, which is good because I haven't seen a lot of them in so long. Yeah.
I actually have a son that's 7. He's almost 8, and I want to show him Double Switch because I think he would like it. I can't find it anywhere. So, do you have any tips on how to find that? I have no idea. I've looked everywhere. I can't find it.
You haven't checked YouTube?
I'll check again. I'll check again for sure, but it's almost like it's kind of locked in a Disney vault somewhere, and they're just not giving it up. I don't know.
I have YouTube right in front of me. I just typed it in, and all they have is just a couple clips of it.
Oh, they do have clips, though. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know he'd like that one.
Yeah, someday probably somebody will upload it, the whole thing.
Yeah, hopefully.
You had a recurring role on Dallas?
Yes, I did.
How was that?
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a great experience because they kept me on there for a few years as Shalane McCall's best friend, and she was the one that played Priscilla Presley's daughter, and so it was me and Brad Pitt, and I think that was it actually, and we both were recurring on that show with her, and so that took me to Texas to Dallas a couple times, and that was a really cool, fun set to be on. They gave me tons of dialogue. That was fun.
Mm-hmm. Patrick Duffy, he directed some episodes.
Yeah. Patrick Duffy, wow. Blast from the past.
Yeah. There was a lot of great actors that were on that show at that time. Cherie J. Wilson.
Oh.
She later was on that Chuck Norris show, Walker, Texas Ranger.
Oh, okay. Remember that one?
Yeah. How was Larry Hagman?
I don't think I had any scenes with him, but I'd see him around set. He was totally cool. I mean, everyone, I've not really had any terrible experiences with people. I think, sets are really very homey if you get on the right one. Some, I'm sure there are horror stories, but for me, I've been pretty lucky that most shows that I've come to guest on or to be a regular on, pretty much everyone seems to be, there's a homey kind of feeling. So holiday time is always very, almost like better to be at set than to be home because they make it so homey, welcoming, and everyone's so kind. That's just been my lucky experience, I suppose.
Yeah, Larry Hagman, he had a reputation for being a partier, and this actor that I interviewed, had a short-lived series on CBS, and he said he took himself very seriously during that half a season that the show was on, and he was telling me, he demanded that a limo would pick him up at home to take him to the set, and another thing he did that he thought was wrong was that he partied with Larry Hagman. Yeah.
I mean, was it wrong though? Really, at the end of the day, you could say you partied with Larry Hagman. I don't know.
Oh no, he says
that's kind of a cool thing to say.
He said he's proud of that in hindsight, but at the time, he says they just did a way too much partying. Yeah. I love hearing anecdotes like that.
Well, I wish I had more for you. Yeah, no, not too much partying. I mean, we were in Rome for the Pulse Founders, which ended up coming out as that City of Angels for Trancers.
Yeah.
where it was the short. There was a lot of drinking there because this is Rome, it's Europe, so you're not Europe, well, yeah. So everyone drinks. It's just common. So we'd go out to, have my first glass of wine, on the beach somewhere in Italy, and just got sick. I mean, my stomach hurt. I was too young to be drinking, but there, young people drink.
Yeah.
Surrounded by, people drink it. It was so beautiful. It was like, oh, the moon is on the water. I'll have some wine, sure. Sure.
Oh, my God.
I'm not underage. It's okay.
Oh, God. Europe has so many different standards than America when it comes to, like, drinking and, like, sex and all that stuff.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's great. It's refreshing, actually, but, I don't know if I should have been having white wine on the beach with a bunch of adults, but, hey, it was a good time.
It was the 80s.
It was the 80s. Hey. Yeah.
You played a pretty young woman in The Great White Hype.
Yeah, that was interesting. I went in first for the role of they first wanted a white girl that could act, to have an attitude like as if she was an African-American or had grown up in an African-American environment, so that's kind of how she was.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally written kind of comedic. So the casting could only think of me that could come in and try and do it, so they kept calling me back. And then I met the director, which was Reginald Hudland, who's gone on to do amazing stuff recently. And they were like, this isn't going to work. So they ended up going with someone else who was actually African-American. I can't remember the girl's name. What's her name? Jennifer Lewis, or not Jennifer Lewis. No, it wasn't Jennifer Lewis. It was somebody else. Anyway, They gave me just this little, kind of thing. We went to Vegas and got to do, play around some fun stuff. So it was like 4 days in Vegas to do one scene, and, it was fun. It was definitely fun.
Yeah, did you do any gambling?
What? Did I do gambling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, actually, at the end of the day. And it was at the end, and I was playing slot machines, lost track of time, almost missed the plane, and I was so excited I'd won like $140. And I was playing the 80s. I was like, I just won $140. Like, yeah, well, you're missing your plane. I'm like, oh, okay. They weren't so happy about that. But that's okay. We made the plane, and everything was fine. But
yeah.
It was all good. That was probably the easiest job I ever did. So.
My dad took me to see the movie when I was 12. We were like one of maybe 10 people in the theater. We're just like laughing so hard.
Yeah, I think my scene was with the that ended up actually being in the film was the one with the Where's the Beef lady.
Yes.
Remember those Where's the Beef commercials? And she was at the teller station where you turn in your chips or you make a bet or whatever.
Yeah.
She was so funny. Oh, she was hilarious. And she kept doing it take after take after take. Whatever the line was very similar to Where's the Beef? So, and I remember Where's the Beef because I grew up on those commercials. So.
Oh, yeah. I got to see the tail end of it when I was a kid. I remember she did this movie. It was a traffic school comedy called Moving Violations, where she plays she's an old lady who can't see, even with glasses on, and she does a lot of funny things. Like she's in the men's room, like taking a dump on the urinal, and she's like, "Why's my back all wet?" or there's a part where she's like drinking, and Bill Murray's brother John is like giving an inspirational speech, and she says, "Yeah, let's cut their fucking heads off."
Oh my god! And she was down for anything, even at however old she was. She must have been close to 100 at that point. I don't know how old she was at that point, but
when you were working with her,
ready to roll with it.
Yeah, she was like in her 90s by the time you worked with her. She was around for...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
She was around for a long time.
Uh-huh. commercial, it becomes popular, and then you just field offers for the next, rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So are you still acting at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I just did a film. I did some narration stuff for some voiceover work and things like that for a film, and I do a lot of commercials, really. Mm-hmm. Mainly because they pay a lot.
They pay a lot, but not
I have a son, and I'm a single mom, so it's like, okay, what can I do here to make some money? So they're not easy to get, but when you do get a good one, it's pretty lucrative. So that's cool, and it's like going back to my roots, because I think I did over 200 national spots,
Yeah.
upstate. So I know that world. I know how technical it can be, And I did a lot of theater in my 20s, and I did a lot of writing in my 20s, and I did a lot of playwriting, and a lot of it got, some acclaim and won some awards from the LA Weekly as best play of the year, best playwriting. I didn't really pursue it as much as I should have, but I was part of the theater company that was pretty popular at the time, and we'd gone on for 10 years, but that was pretty much my 20s was spent working, doing episodic stuff, and then doing a lot of theater. So I was really fulfilled at that point. And then I had a baby, and I lost my mom, and things life takes over. And so I want a stable life for my little Oliver.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the best.
Did having him and losing your mom disband the theater company?
Actually, the theater company had kind of gone, you hit a burnout, because a lot of times when you're really, really active in something, it's the circle the circle of power dwindles, or it just becomes like there's certain people that you rely on, and then after years, and you're like, can I take a break? And then if you break that circle, the things start to fall apart a little bit, or, at one point I was literary manager, so I was fielding all of these plays that were coming in and reading them and deciding which productions we were going to put up and put money into, and that was also with Anthony Barneo, who pushed me to write.
Mm-hmm.
And when he saw that I had some sort of talent in writing, he really, just as he did when I was 6 in his acting class, he always believed in me. Oh. He was definitely my mentor, and he passed away last year, just around this time in September. But that was really a devastating kind of thing, because he was still very active in my life, and very, still in the industry, and he was managing and doing casting here and there, and, he definitely was a force and a big supporter for me, so not having him around has been kind of a bummer, so. But he lives on in memory, and I teach acting classes too, and I coach, and I'm very involved in that area. So that's been good, especially with kids too, because I know how hard it is for kids to grow up in the industry. It can get pretty harsh, especially when you have mom taking you to every audition. It's not like a soccer mom and a soccer kid.
Yeah.
Completely a different relationship, Mm-hmm. So helping parents and kids kind of have a healthy relationship when they have professional kids. It can go off canter real quick, especially when you're growing up and you're just trying to find yourself. And
yeah,
heavy business to be involved in as a kid. So,
yeah,
we want healthy kid actors. We want healthy adult actors. We want, so many people are falling off just because they just destroy. It's a hard business.
Yeah, it's a hard business, and so many things need to change, and I hope someone has the balls someday to stand up and change it, just like, they're already starting, with the Me Too movement and everything.
Oh, yeah. I did, I have this little side project that's called Hollywood Progressive Comedy Resistance, and basically my response
it's a
to
good
Trump
name.
being put into office, and I was just like, what are we going to do? And so I kind of put together this idea of a show where it was like, we're going to not normalize this. So the first show was, I just contacted random stand-up people from all different backgrounds. You know, we had a Muslim comic, I talked to Maz Jordani, I talked to, you know, I just reached out to all these people, and we had this great show. It's just an eclectic group of stand-up comics talking about what this new Trump world is going to be like. And then, you know, then we donated any funds to this, those that donors choose, which is where you give funds to a classroom. And at the time, this was 3 years ago, I was looking up on donors choose and pick a project. So you put in like empathy projects or projects of inclusion or Me Too or something, you know, whatever it was at the time. And there was none. There were no projects except for like one lady in Mississippi wanted to add a library of books that dealt with women's rights, LGBTQ rights. You know, she wanted to stock her library with different stories from around the world of people, you know, like good young adult novels. So we funded that library. It was like direct action. So we funded the whole library for her. So these kids could find out about what it's like to live in Mexico or what it's like to live in, you know, Pakistan or something like that from a, you know, from a narrative nonfiction kind of way. So.
Wow.
So we felt pretty good about that. So we kept doing that, and then we did a Me Too one. And I had a Me Too story, and I reached out to all my actor friends, and I knew they had Me Too stories. They were just too afraid to talk about them. I said, come on, guys, let's come out with this. And it took forever to find actresses that were willing to come out. And I looked up on the internet and found that there was this guy, I'm not going to say the name, but there was this guy who was a pretty prominent guy in Hollywood. He was actually a casting director. And I looked up his name to see if he was still working.
Yeah.
And there was an article in the Hollywood Reporter, and it's like 6 women had come forward and told the exact same story I had. He used the exact same material, the same scene, to try and get actresses to take their clothes off.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, huge abuse of power. But I was so proud of these ladies for coming forward. And I didn't come forward. I came forward to somebody, like a professional person that I knew, and they just said, oh, don't say anything. It's okay. So because I thought, oh, God, I'm the only one, or you never know. And then you're like, I don't want to piss this guy off because then they're never going to call me in for that show, and, you know, whatever. So these women came forward, so I contacted them, and now I'm very good friends with a few of them.
Yeah.
And then we did a Me Too show, and through Hollywood Progressive. So it was kind of like evolving into this once a year. We kind of tackled some sort of, you know, thing in the industry that can change or that would create awareness or something like that. You know.
That's wonderful.
It's a way to bring our community together. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It feels good to give back, and everyone donates their time, and they're all so super talented and things like that. So
yeah,
I
was pissed when I found out that Bohemian Rhapsody was directed by Bryan Singer because he's a well-known pedophile in Hollywood. And after that thing, that court case he had in 2014, you know, I was like, how come this guy is not canceled? You know, I mean, that is just disgusting.
Yeah, well, how many other people have been? I'm surprised, too. We were all surprised, I think.
Yeah.
That he was still, you know. But it's going to take a lot of time. And, you know, unfortunately, there's so many other things that are clouding up that cause. So hopefully it will continue to go on. And, you know, I've been pretty fortunate that when on set and things like that, I've never really had those horror stories that some of them have. I mean, I just had the one, but I was, you know, it was still an abuse of power, and it put me in a powerless position. And I think that's really where it starts. It doesn't have to be some, you know, violent assault, which I know happens, which is unforgivable. But a lot of guys, just there's so many, I'm sure, that are out there that are like, oh, God, I hope they don't call me on the phone anytime soon, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of scared people still.
Yeah.
That are hoping this whole thing if you're not going to. But, what bothers me, though, is that SAG only put out a section of guidelines. They didn't put anything in their actual, statement of purpose or whatever about that issue. They just set out a bunch of guidelines for the actor to protect themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I
think is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty worried at first when it first happened, because my whole life I've hung out with the girls, who are like, they're like tomboys, and they're not easily offended, and we joke and talk dirty and stuff,
Sure.
So I've never really been exposed to, I've always been a gentleman, of course, but I've never been exposed to, don't joke like this, with this girl or that girl and stuff like. So I was really scared. I was like, oh God, I hope, nothing like.
You're gonna get a phone call.
Yeah, but I didn't.
Your name is Prince.
Yeah.
It
didn't happen,
no.
But I was worried.
Oh.
That story you told me earlier, though, about, Charlie Band calling you and saying, why aren't you in Italy, that I've heard millions of stories.
No, when we were in the elevator and he says, are you going to enjoy, are you ready to go to Italy?
Oh, that's right. Well,
yeah.
Well, I've heard many stories like that where someone didn't know that they got the role, That's one thing that needs to change in Hollywood, because a person could be on the set of this piece of shit low-budget movie that they know is a piece of shit, but they need the money, and then Spielberg calls and says, why aren't you here at Universal,
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, but that's the agent right there. But, yeah, that would do it.
Yeah.
I'd be a little upset about that.
I've heard a lot of stories like that. I
wasn't told I was offered something huge, and here I am doing something, less than Steven Spielberg quality.
Yeah. I think everyone has.
But I think Trancers was more of a it felt family to me because I grew up with it. Mm-hmm. And I grew up with those people, and I grew up, knowing Tim, and he was not a father figure, but he was like a big brother, and and I learned so much just from watching them work, and nobody used foul language. I was so I think sheltered from a lot of stuff. I got very lucky in that respect, that I didn't end up having to work with people who were tyrants or problems or mean or everyone was just very lovely with Trancers, even though we knew we were having fun and didn't take ourselves too seriously. But
yeah, you can't with a movie like that.
Yeah, you got to go in and do your job and make it professional, but at the same time, we did have a lot of fun, and I wish they'd do another one and put all the original cast, like Thelma Hopkins and
love her.
Have Art in there.
Yeah.
And then Tim, that would be great. I don't know how Helen's doing that, but she might come back. I don't know.
I'm sure it's on the list. I'm sure it's.
Oh well, I don't know.
I'm sure it's on Charlie's list, because he's remaking a couple of his movies. He's doing another Puppet Master, and I think he's doing something else. But I'm sure it's on the list.
Oh, cool. Well, I hope they include me, because that would be awesome to see an older little McNulty.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I would love to,
Mm-hmm.
being a dude again. That'd be awesome.
That would be great. Yeah.
Favorite character to date.
Yep.
So much freedom.
So, Alison, there's this quick game that I like to play with guests at the end. What it is, it's silly slumber party questions, and how it works is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me the exact same question, and I answer it.
Okay.
Alison, are you ticklish?
Am I tickled?
Are you ticklish?
Oh, ticklish, yes. Tommy, are you ticklish?
I am baby ticklish. Yes. Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
It is an innie. Tommy is your belly button, an innie or an outie.
I have a very deep innie, yes.
Mine's deep too.
Yeah.
Mine's deep. Yeah, mine's a deep one.
Do you contemplate your belly button?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too every
Why
day.
does it go so far?
Yeah.
It's weird.
It goes all the way to my foreknuckle.
No, mine's not quite that. Well, the foreknuckle's the top knuckle, right?
Exactly.
Oh, now I've got my finger at my belly button. That's a good image. Let's see, how far does mine go? No, it's like the fingernail, like up to the cuticle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because
to me that feels like a large innie. I don't know.
Yeah. What color are your toenails painted?
My toenails are not painted at the moment. What color are your toenails painted, Tommy?
They're not painted, but last time they were purple with sparkles.
Oh, cute. Mine were pink with sparkles. Gold sparkles, actually.
I love that. Yeah.
Specific.
And my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
Yes.
Kombucha. What's that?
It's a drink.
Oh.
It's all the rage. Everyone's doing it here. And I think I may have it smells like stinky feet. It is horrifying. I got so sick just smelling it. Now I can't smell it at all. Or I'm done. I would take a dirty baby diaper over the smell of kombucha. Tommy, do you have a smell that makes you gag?
Yeah, either stinky feet or farts.
Farts, yeah. Not a big fan of farts either.
No.
You know what's so funny is I have a little chihuahua, and she's a girl, and if my son or something farts, she perks up, she knows it, and then smells and runs out of the room. Like a bomb has gone off in the room. Every single time. It is so cute.
That's hilarious.
She's a little priss. Yes, she's like, oh, no. That's stinky. I'm out of here.
The smoke alarms went off.
Yeah, like it's like her ears perk right up, and she's like, oh no, fart alert.
Well, Alison, I thank you so much for coming on today and finally doing this.
Oh, no, anytime. I'm sorry I wasn't feeling well that last time, but I'm glad we got something in.
It's perfectly all right. My mom is also very ill right now, and
oh no, you too.
Yeah, I haven't caught it, thank God, but she's ill. It's going around. You know.
Oh, I thought you said you were ill.
Oh no! My mom, she's very ill right now. It's just I haven't caught it, but I'm lucky.
Yeah, it's really hard to just stay away from it. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Nope.
Next year, let's do another where we can talk for 2 hours.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Hit me up when you can.
Awesome.
And hopefully there'll be a new Trancers in the mix, and bringing back the oldies.
Yeah.
The original.
Yeah, I can tell you.
And have a good, nice budget for it.
Yes, I can tell you about my Me Too experience.
Guys have those too. It's a thing. It's not just a girl thing, But the industry, like, if we go back for it, it's I talk to a lot of guys, and they're like, there's times where you have to go on an audition, and they're like, well, we need to see you in your underwear for this spot. And it's legit.
Yeah.
And the producer or somebody takes you into the bathroom, and you have to take your pants off, and they take pictures of you in underwear, so they can show that you don't have scars or, tattoos or whatever, and it's fully, like, status quo.
Right.
Nowadays, you're like, I'm going to need a chaperone and, someone filming this to make sure nothing bad goes on. I mean, it's just such a wacky industry in that way.
Yeah, I'm a guy who will get naked for anyone, but in this instance, that was not the case.
Right. As an actor, you can't be modest. You just can't. So you don't take those things as being like, oh, this is totally out of the ordinary. If I worked at a car dealership and my boss was like, hey, we need to check out your underwear to make sure that they're clean for work, you'd be like, no. Like, that's totally out of line. But for an actor, it's part of the job.
Mm-hmm.
Your body becomes a commodity that's, important for the role.
Exactly.
So it's a hard line.
Exactly.
fuzzy line. But I want to hear this Me Too story from you too. So yeah,
I will.
anytime you want to do it again, I'm available. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Merry
All
Christmas and Happy New Year to you and your little son Oliver there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Alison Croft. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Alison. You are fucking awesome. I'm glad we got to have a conversation like that, and we got to go deep. The last couple of podcasts been going pretty deep. That's what I love. We get to just not talk about movies, but we get to talk about, our souls pretty much. That's what I love about podcasting. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes!